Bon dia, welcome to Exploring Timor-Leste, the podcast that talks about Southeast Asia's best kept travel secret. I'm your host Jonty, and I'll share first-hand insights, expert interviews and practical travel tips. Whether you're a traveller, a culture lover or just curious about places rarely covered in the mainstream, you're in the right place. Let's explore Timor-Leste. In today's episode, I want to give you an idea for some itineraries. So if you're planning to visit Timor-Leste, this will give you some ideas about how you can structure your visit. I'll talk about 5 day trips you can do from Dili, 5 overnight or 2-day trips you can do from Dili, and 3 trips where you want to allow at least 3 days to complete them. So hopefully these will give you some ideas of combinations to make the most of your time in Timor-Leste. To start with the day trips from Dili, the most popular and obvious place to visit is Ataru Island. I've talked about this extensively on other podcasts. It is a beautiful place, a must visit if you're coming to Timor. And I'd recommend that you spend a few days there. It's a very nice place to spend some time and relax. But if you only have one day, you can go to Ataru for the day. You get the ferry out in the morning, you get a few hours on the island, and then get the ferry back. The best place for up-to-date information about travelling to Ataru Island is on the website of Barry's Place. And to getting here, Barry updates that regularly with the latest services. As I record this in mid-2025, there were ferry services 5 days a week. To get the most time on the island though, you want to get the Dragon boat. These are the fast boats that take about an hour and a half to get to Ataru. The other ferries take more like 3 to 3.5 hours, so obviously you get less time on the island. So if you get the Dragon boat out and back on the same day, you're probably going to have 3 to 4 hours on the island, which is plenty of time to look around the markets, particularly on a Saturday. Maybe have a quick walk around the village of Beloy. And the main attraction, obviously, is snorkeling. And if you go to Barry's Place, you can rent gear and organise boats to go and snorkel in the inner reef. You can also snorkel directly off the beach. Just south of the wharf, there is a reef there, which is okay, but the inner reef is definitely the place to go to if you can, which does require a local fishing boat to take you out. It's a very short boat ride of a few minutes, but it's too far to safely swim. If you only do 1 day trip from Dili, I'd recommend Ataru Island. A second day trip idea is to go out to Likisar. So this is to the west of Dili, and it's very doable, particularly if you have your own transport, like hiring a car or a scooter. The road is in decent condition. You can visit the historic Appellate prison, Mubara, which has a fort, a church and a lake, and Likisar town, which is a massacre site, a church and some seafront restaurants, all in the day with about 2.5 hours driving. It is technically possible to do it by local bus, but the buses may be infrequent, so you do risk getting stuck there. I think if you just went to one place and came back, you probably could, but if you want to visit multiple sites in Likisar, that's quite difficult without your own transport. Another option as a day trip is to head up to Gleno. This is the largest town in Amira, and it has a huge church, and on the way you can stop at Ralako to visit the Gecko Cafe. There are local buses up there, or if you've got your own transport, allow 2.5 hours in total for driving to Gleno and back. The road is steep and winding, but it is a sealed and well-maintained road. Another option is Saloy Krak. This is home to a beautiful lagoon filled with water lilies and surrounded by rice fields. You need to allow at least 3 hours for driving if you're going to go there in a day. Take the road to Aleo, and before you get into Aleo, you turn off right, and it's about a 20 to 30 minute detour. The road does get significantly worse once you get off the main road, and actually if you can go from Saloy Krak onto Gleno, and that road is quite a bad road. So you need your own transport to get to Saloy Krak, but it is a very nice place to visit. Or continue along that road to Aleo. That's a very pleasant day trip. You've got a cooler climate up there. There's mountain views. There's good places to have lunch. There's a couple of notable memorials and some busy markets on a Saturday. It's a very winding road. It's about an hour and a half from Dili to Aleo, and the longest piece of straight road is probably maybe, 100 meters. Like the whole way, you are going left, right. So if you get car sick, you might want to give this one a miss. But if you're on a motorbike, it's quite good fun to take the winding road, and you do get some beautiful views back towards Dili and the coastline for when you get up into the hills. So those can all be done in one day. Obviously, you can spend longer if you wish. Now, 2-day trips, I would start by recommending Balcao. This is the second largest city in Timor-Leste, and it's home to wonderful historic buildings and the only real large public swimming pool in the country. It's about a 2.5 hour drive one way from Dili along a stunning coastline on some of the best roads in the country. So head out in the morning, have a nice afternoon there, go relax at the pool, see some of the sights, stay overnight. There's a few different accommodation options, and then come back the next day. Another good 2-day option is Balabo, and that is 3 to 4 hours drive one way from Dili. So again, it's a bit too far to do in a day, but certainly as a 2-day trip, it's great. Now, on the way, you're going to travel through Likizar, so potentially you could visit some of those sites I mentioned earlier, and then stay in Balabo at the historic Balabo Fort Hotel. Visit some of the sites in Balabo the following morning, and then head back to Dili. I'd also recommend that you stop in Atabai on the way. The D2 Uma Cafe has fantastic views of the rice fields. Another popular 2-day option is to go to Mount Ramalau, which is the highest point in Timor-Leste, just under 3,000 meters high. Allow 2.5 to 3 hours driving one way from Dili, with some challenging road conditions towards the end, requiring a 4-wheel drive vehicle or very good motorbike skills. You'll stay in the beautiful village of Hatobaliko, which is the highest in Timor-Leste, and a lot of people would go out there, and you get up about 2:30 in the morning to hike to the summit of Ramalau for sunrise at around 6 a.m. I didn't like to get up so early, so I went for sunset instead, and then came down in the evening and headed the next day. A lot of people may just go up to see Mount Ramalau, but I'd highly recommend trying to factor in time to visit the Dokamali waterfall, which is probably the most impressive in the country. It's about 45 minutes down the road from Mubisi, and also to spend a bit of time in Hatobaliko, an hour or two at least, wandering around the village, because there's quite a few things to see and do. Now, on the way to Mount Ramalau is Mubisi, so that's another option if you don't have a 4-wheel drive vehicle. You can still enjoy the beautiful mountain scenery. That's about a 2.5 hour drive one way from Dili, along good roads the whole way. Now, one of my favourite 2-day trips, which you can do over a weekend, is to visit Akusi. This is Timor-Leste's enclave. It's completely surrounded by Indonesia. From Dili, overnight ferries and overland buses take the best part of 12 hours, or you can fly with Aero Dili in 35 minutes. And there's flights that leave on Friday afternoon and return Monday morning. So it's 3 nights, but it's really 2 days, and that's about the ideal amount of time to spend exploring this little visited part of Timor-Leste. Now, a few ideas for longer trips than that. So Jacko Island is technically possible to visit in a weekend, but as it involves 12 to 16 hours of driving to get there and back, that doesn't leave much time to explore the place. So it's better to spread it out over 3 days and break up the journey in Balcao and Com, and expect the road to Com to be quite decent, but from Com through to Jacko Island, that is pretty bad. So you do need some decent transport to get that far. Another option, as I mentioned at the beginning, Ataru Island you can visit in one day, but 2 or 3 days is much better. You get a real chance to enjoy island time. My final suggestion is to go to Bagia. Now, this is really for adventure travellers. I'd say far fewer people visit here than Jacko Island. It's less well known, but arguably more interesting and spectacular. So here you can stay at another historic fort, the Bagia Fort, which is a very nice place to stay, surrounded by mountains, and you can hike up to the summit of Matabien, which is the second highest peak in Timor-Leste. That is significantly more challenging than Mount Ramalau. To get to Bagia is a 5-hour drive one way from Dili. Along the coast, there are decent roads, so you're heading through to Balcao and go a bit further to Langa, and then you start heading inland, and the roads get very rough. When I visited here in late 2024, there was some road construction underway, which will certainly improve the journey, but I'm not sure it's going to go all the way to Bagia. It's probably the first section only, so you do need a 4-wheel drive vehicle or very good motorbike skills. But for those who have the time, energy, and adventure to get out to Bagia, I would really recommend it as an off-the-beaten-track gem and somewhere that's not very well explored. Hopefully those have given you some ideas of various things you can do in Timor-Leste. As always, look on the exploringtimor.com website to find more ideas about how you can explore this beautiful country. Thank you so much for listening to Exploring Timor-Leste. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please consider leaving a rating or a review. It really helps more people discover the show. If you have any questions or feedback, I'd love to hear from you. Drop me an email at exploringtimorleste@gmail.com. Until next time, obrigado ho adeus.